Hey guys, and well, hello there. Random video that I'm going to be stitching together probably in the next few days. But one thing I did realize was that I think it's very difficult to make good choices when you're in a high pressure environment like a cooker pressure. No, a pressure cooker. That's what they're called. Do you know how a pressure cooker works? Okay, so without Googling it, here's what I think how a pressure cooker works. So a pressure cooker, it's usually a container like a pot. It's a special type of pot where it's got a lid on it and it's very tight. Stays that lid is kind of like you put it down and you twist it on, and so it's not going to pop off because remember, there's going to be pressure. So part of that pressure cooker will have usually some water, okay? And it's used for cooking. So there's some water, there's heat, okay? There's heat, and that heat boils the water or makes it really, really hot in there. So you might be getting an idea of a pressure cooker as something where uh, water is boiling, but the steam isn't escaping anywhere. It's staying within the pot. And that's a pretty crazy idea when you think about it. Let's say usually pressure cookers that I've dealt with, or rather I've seen, for example, my parents, they would cook some meats in there. For example, maybe some beef or something, and they would boil it and they would cook it. And when it comes out, it is like super malleable. It's super like very tender, extremely. You can do anything with it. Pretty much falls apart. So, how does this apply to your life? How does a pressure cooker and your life, how can they be kind of correlated or somehow matched up? Well, as it turns out, a pressure cooker, I can match it up to sort of maybe working for a toxic environment in a workplace. For example, every workplace has certain types of people. Almost every workplace I've ever been to, I've worked at dozens and dozens of places. I've been working for over 35 years, okay? And so that's what you get when you're trying to record stuff on a phone. You just run out of sort of space, right? Anyway, what I was trying to say was that I've been working at different workplaces for over 35 years. And so I've seen certain types of people. But anyway, let's go back to the whole pressure cooker sort of like analogy or illustration. So at every workplace, usually, okay, if you've been working long enough, you're going to experience the word is pressure. And part of that pressure is magnified because of the heat, stuff that happens at the workplace, things that you usually can't control. For example, an extremely toxic boss or a superior, a supervisor, a manager, just a real difficult person to deal with that they're not happy, or maybe they have it out for you. And so, along with this pressure and heat and everything, you're in there trying to do your work. And it's at that point where you have all these things happening, and it's like a high pressure environment, like a pressure cooker, that you have the rest of your life that you're trying to deal with, right? And my concern when it comes to making decisions when your life feels like it's in a pressure cooker or in a high pressure environment, or you feel like there's a lot of things happening around you, it's extremely rare, I believe, that people make the right decisions when they're in that type of environment, when they're under a lot of pressure. And that's why I always believe it's important to sort of try to remove yourself from that area or that situation. Because the decisions you make based on how you feel, the context of your life, your relationships, your finances, which is a big part right there, I think, can affect you later on down the road. Like, for example, there are certain decisions that you make today that may not have a huge effect on your life. For example, I don't know, should I have a coffee with cream or something? Now, if you do that enough times or too many times, it will have an effect on your life. However, certain decisions where if you make the wrong one now, it could possibly magnify into something much worse or much less tenable in the future. And I always say, don't make difficult decisions when you're in that environment. I'm a big believer in removing yourself from that environment, either physically or maybe mentally, or maybe sometimes, you emotionally detach yourself so that you're thinking clearly. But you need to sort of have the right context and environment to make those decisions, those important decisions. And it's my belief that you can never make the right decision unless you know who you are, your core self. For example, I know people that say, oh, you have to make a pros and cons list. Okay, fine. But if you don't know exactly the direction that you're going as a person and like what you're about, I mean, truly what you're about, okay? What you really, really want, not what your parents want, not what your partner wants or your kids want, it's what you want. You're never going to make a decision that'll make you happy. I think you really have to own yourself. You have to know your inner self before you can make the right decision for you. And I think this is something that's difficult to talk about because it just sounds like you're only thinking about yourself, self, like somehow you're being selfish. I don't believe so at all. And maybe I'll discuss why I don't believe that understanding who you are and knowing exactly what you want isn't being selfish. Actually, the opposite happens. It actually makes things better for people around you. It makes things richer for yourself and for others as well if you know exactly what you want and what you're about. So trying to make a decision when your life is under pressure, like a pressure cooker, is extremely difficult. So, and this is where something like a little fortress of solitude, like my minivan, has helped me out. I mean, in many ways. I can't begin to tell you guys how this fortress of solitude, this home on wheels, this cabin on wheels, has literally improved my life in so many ways, and just the way I approach things. And I think there's so many things I want to say right now, but I'm running out of time. I got to start work soon, but I'll post it up at some point and just maybe elaborate a bit more. Anyway, guys, there's a few talking points here. I may not have given you the best answer, but